Ready for a deep dive, guys. Today we're going to be talking about the disappearance of Amelia Earhart.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I think everyone kind of knows the basics, right? Like legendary aviator just vanishes trying to fly around the world in 1937.
Right.
But we're going to go a little bit deeper than that.
I like it.
We're going to be examining the clues and exploring all those what if theories.
Yeah, the what ifs are always the most fun.
They really are. So let's rewind back to 1937. Amelia Earhart. She's already a global icon,
Oh, yeah.
famous for pushing boundaries in aviation.
Pushing it to the limit.
Really? Yeah. But this wasn't just any other flight.
No.
Her goal was to circumnavigate the globe, a grueling 29,000-mile journey along the equator,
Wow.
a feat no one had ever accomplished before.
That's crazy.
And I think to understand the magnitude of this challenge, you have to think about the world back then.
Yeah.
No GPS, no sophisticated long-range communication. I mean, Earhart was relying on radio signals, celestial navigation,
Wow.
and a whole lot of courage to find her way across vast oceans.
Yeah. That's intense.
Yeah. And on top of that, she was flying in the Lockheed Electra 10E,
Okay.
a state-of-the-art aircraft for its time, but it had limitations.
Go.
It could only fly about 1,100 miles on a full tank of fuel.
Oh, wow.
And that limited range that becomes so crucial when you consider those massive distances over open water.
Yeah, you got to think about how huge those oceans are.
Absolutely. I mean, imagine crossing the Atlantic Ocean, then Africa, India, Southeast Asia,
Oh, my God.
and then finally landing in New Guinea.
Yeah.
That's what Earhart accomplished before even starting that last leg of her journey across the Pacific.
So it was just the beginning.
Yeah, and that final leg, it was the most challenging by far.
Right.
It was the longest stretch over water.
Okay.
And her ultimate goal was Howland Island, this tiny speck of land in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine trying to find a tiny island only 1.5 miles wide from the air without GPS?
Oh, that's impossible.
It was like searching for a needle in a haystack.
I can't even imagine.
And then remember the Electra's fuel range?
Oh, yeah.
So limited, so there was no room for error. They
Okay.
couldn't just circle around if they missed Howland.
That's it.
So July 2nd, 1937, Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan,
Okay.
they take off from New Guinea.
Mm-hmm.
Howland Island was their target.
Okay.
They had the U.S. Coast Guard ship Itasca stationed near Howland.
Gotcha.
It was sending out radio signals to help guide them.
So it was like their lifeline.
Exactly, their only hope in that massive ocean.
Wow.
And initially, everything seemed to be going according to plan.
Okay.
They were in contact with the Itasca receiving those signals.
Right.
But as they got closer to Howland,
Yeah.
communications started to get a little shaky.
Oh, no.
The signals were weaker, more sporadic,
Oh,
almost like they were fading in and out.
that's scary.
Almost as if the static and interference were echoing the growing tension inside the cockpit.
Oh, gosh.
As they struggled to find their position.
Yeah.
Imagine the pressure they must have felt, fuel dwindling every minute.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I can't even imagine.
And then at 8:43 a.m., they received Earhart's final transmission.
Okay.
She reported being on the line 157-337 running north and south.
Mm-hmm.
Picture like a giant ruler across the Pacific.
Right.
And she was somewhere along that line,
Wow.
desperately trying to find this tiny island.
Yeah.
But that transmission didn't give an exact location,
Oh, no.
and it was their last.
Wow.
After that, nothing but silence.
Silence.
Silence that stretched into days, then weeks.
Oh, my gosh.
Imagine the world just holding its breath,
Yeah.
clinging to hope as the U.S. government launched this massive search and rescue.
They had to.
It was huge, unprecedented, covering a staggering 250,000 square miles.
That's incredible.
Ships and planes everywhere looking for any sign of the Electra.
Yeah.
Any trace of Earhart and Noonan. It was the largest air and sea search in history at that point.
Wow. It's a lot.
A testament to Earhart's fame and the world's fascination with her. But despite the massive scale of this search, they found nothing.
Really? Nothing.
Nothing, no wreckage, no debris, no life rafts.
Oh, wow.
After 2 agonizing weeks, the search was called off,
Oh, my gosh.
and the world had to grapple with this crushing reality.
Yeah.
Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan had vanished without a trace.
That's so sad.
And in the absence of any concrete answers,
Yeah.
that's when the theories, the speculation, the enduring mystery,
Yeah.
all of that truly began to take flight.
Right.
So what happened? With no definitive answers,
Yeah.
that's when all the theories, the speculation, the enduring mystery of Amelia Earhart's disappearance truly takes off.
Yeah. It's like having all the pieces of a puzzle, but no picture to guide you.
Right.
You have bits of evidence, tantalizing clues, but no clear image of what actually happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this case so fascinating.
Right.
It invites us to examine the evidence, weigh the possibilities, and really draw our own conclusions.
Absolutely. So let's dive into some of these theories. The first one we need to address is what's often considered the most likely explanation,
Okay.
the crash and sink theory.
Okay, so crash and sink.
This theory suggests that Earhart's plane, the Electra, simply ran out of fuel
Right.
before reaching Howland Island and crashed into the Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
And remember, their fuel range was limited and navigating without modern technology.
Yeah.
Incredibly challenging.
For sure.
And we know from her radio transmissions that they were running low on fuel,
Mm-hmm.
desperately searching for that tiny island.
Right.
Plus, the Pacific Ocean currents are so strong.
Oh, yeah.
Any potential wreckage could have been scattered over such a massive area,
Right.
making it nearly impossible to find, even with today's technology.
You're right. The ocean is such a powerful force.
Yeah.
Capable of really swallowing evidence and obscuring the truth.
Absolutely. But of course, as with any good mystery, there are counter-arguments to this theory.
Right.
Some people point to the fact that despite numerous searches over the years, no definitive wreckage from the Electra has ever been found.
Interesting.
I mean, we've had teams using sonar submersibles, even AI, to scan the ocean floor,
Wow.
but still nothing conclusive.
Huh. And that lack of physical evidence is what keeps those other theories alive?
Yeah.
It's like a door left slightly ajar,
Uh-huh.
inviting us to consider alternative possibilities.
I like that a door left ajar.
Yeah. And one of the most intriguing of those is the Nikumaroro hypothesis.
Ooh, Nikumaroro.
This theory proposes that Earhart and Noonan didn't crash into the ocean, but instead managed to land on this remote island called Nikumaroro,
Okay.
about 350 miles from Howland Island.
Okay, now this is where things get really interesting,
Yeah.
because there is some physical evidence linked to Nikumaroro.
Oh, really?
In 1940, a partial human skeleton was found on the island,
Wow.
along with some intriguing artifacts, a woman's shoe, a compact mirror,
Okay.
and even a bottle of freckle cream,
Freckle green.
something that Amelia Earhart was known to use.
Wow, that's really interesting.
And those artifacts have been at the center of debate for decades.
I bet.
Some experts believe they could be linked to Earhart, pointing to the specific type of shoe.
Okay.
And the fact that the skeletal remains, though later lost,
Yeah.
were initially thought to be consistent with a woman of Earhart's height and ethnicity.
It's like finding pieces of a puzzle that seem to fit,
Yeah,
but you're not quite sure if they belong to the same picture.
exactly. And adding another layer to this theory is the analysis of radio signals
Okay.
from 1937.
Mm-hmm.
Some researchers believe those signals could have been distress calls from Earhart,
Okay.
sent from Nikumaroro in the days after her disappearance.
Interesting.
They argue that if the plane landed on the reef,
Yeah.
the tide could have eventually swept it away,
Okay.
explaining the lack of wreckage.
That makes sense.
So we have these tantalizing artifacts,
Right.
potentially corroborating radio signals.
Yeah.
But if she landed on Nikumaroro, why haven't we found more definitive proof? Why is this still a theory and not a solved case?
Well, there are some significant challenges to this theory.
Okay.
For one, the island lacks a reliable source of fresh water,
Right.
making long-term survival incredibly difficult.
Ah.
Also, the skeletal remains discovered in 1940 were unfortunately lost,
Oh, no.
meaning we can't conduct modern DNA testing
Right.
to confirm if they belong to Earhart.
That's such a crucial piece of the puzzle missing.
I know, it's like we're so close to an answer,
Yeah.
but just out of reach.
And that's the frustrating nature of this case.
It is.
We have these intriguing clues, but that definitive proof remains elusive.
Yeah, and despite the challenges, the mystery of Nikumaroro continues to fuel these expeditions and research efforts.
Yeah.
Rick Gillespie and his Tiger group
Mm-hmm.
have dedicated years to searching the island,
Wow.
hoping to uncover the truth.
It's amazing how after all this time,
know.
this case still inspires such dedication.
Yeah.
It speaks to the power of unsolved mysteries to really capture our imagination
For sure.
and drive us to seek answers.
Absolutely. But let's move on to some other theories that have been circulating over
Yeah.
the years.
Yeah.
And these take a slightly more dramatic,
Okay.
even conspiratorial turn.
Ooh, I like it.
Let's start with the Japanese capture theory.
Okay, Japanese capture theory.
This theory proposes that Earhart and Noonan were captured by the Japanese,
Okay.
potentially on Saipan Island.
Right.
which was under Japanese control at the time.
Right, and this was during a period of, growing tension between the U.S. and Japan.
Exactly, in the years leading up to World War II.
So some people believe that Earhart might have been mistaken for a spy
Oh, wow.
or deliberately captured by the Japanese military.
Okay.
And I remember back in 2017, there was that History Channel documentary
Yeah.
that presented this photo that they claimed showed Earhart and Noonan under Japanese custody.
Oh, wow.
It seemed like a huge breakthrough at the time.
I bet it did.
Right, and that photo created quite a buzz.
Yeah.
And it really reignited a lot of interest in this theory. But unfortunately, it was later debunked.
Oh, no.
It turned out to have been taken in 1935,
Really?
2 years before Earhart's disappearance.
Oh, man. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions.
I know, you get your hopes up,
Yeah.
and then bam, the evidence turns out to be a dead end.
That's so frustrating.
But even without that photo, are there any other pieces of evidence
Yeah.
that support the Japanese capture theory?
Well, some eyewitnesses on Saipan claim to have seen an American woman and man imprisoned
Okay.
around the time of Earhart's disappearance.
Hmm.
However, eyewitness accounts can be unreliable,
Right.
especially after so many years.
Right, of course.
And if the Japanese had captured Earhart, you would think there'd be some official record of it
Right.
somewhere in their archives.
Yeah.
But no official Japanese records mentioning Earhart has ever been found.
So while this theory plays into our fascination with espionage and international intrigue,
Yeah.
it lacks that concrete evidence to make it a truly compelling explanation. All right, so we've got the crash and sink, we've got the possibility of survival on Nikumaroro, and even the Japanese capture theory.
Right, a lot to think about.
But there's one more theory we need to explore.
Okay, hit me with it.
One that leans even further into speculation and conspiracy.
Ooh, this is where it gets good.
The idea that Amelia Earhart was a spy for the U.S. government.
But a spy, really?
Yeah, this theory suggests that her round-the-world flight was a cover for a secret mission
Okay.
to gather intelligence on Japanese military installations in the Pacific.
Wow, that's a big claim.
Right, and people who believe this theory point to a declassified document
Okay.
that hints at the U.S. government maybe suspecting she was captured,
Okay.
but choosing to keep it quiet
Okay.
to avoid, a diplomatic incident.
Oh, so big cover-up.
Yeah, and then there's the fact that President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was in office at the time, he remained silent. Publicly silent on Earhart's fate. Could that silence be a sign of a cover-up?
I mean, it definitely adds fuel to the fire.
Right. It really does.
But it's important to remember that speculation without evidence can be dangerous.
Right.
It can lead us down a rabbit hole of just conjecture.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge with this spy theory.
Right.
There's no solid evidence linking Earhart to any military involvement
Right.
or any espionage activities.
So while this theory might, tap into our fascination with spy novels and covert operations,
Yeah.
it seems to be more about filling in the gaps with imagination
Yeah.
than relying on factual evidence.
Right. It's almost like we're so drawn to this mystery
Yeah.
that we're willing to just create elaborate narratives
Yeah.
to explain the inexplicable.
Yeah, our brains are wired for storytelling.
Right.
And when a story's incomplete,
Yeah.
we instinctively try to complete it,
Yeah.
even if it means, venturing into speculation.
Makes sense.
But after exploring all these theories, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. It's a question that continues to fascinate me.
Yeah.
And honestly, I find myself drawn to the simplicity of the crash and sink theory.
Yeah.
It's the most straightforward explanation.
Right.
Aligning with the known facts about the Electra's limited fuel.
Yeah.
The challenges of navigation back then.
Right.
And just the vastness of the Pacific.
It feels like the most logical conclusion when you consider the evidence
Yeah.
or the lack of evidence
Yeah,
to
that's-
support those more elaborate theories.
Right. But the other theories, while maybe less likely,
Yeah.
they have this allure,
Yeah.
a sense of mystery and intrigue that's hard to resist.
I know what you mean, the possibility of survival on a remote island.
Yeah.
The image of Earhart and Noonan enduring hardship, clinging to hope.
Right.
It taps into our human desire for resilience, for triumph over adversity.
Absolutely. And those artifacts on Nikumaroro, the freckle cream,
Yeah.
like breadcrumbs in a fairy tale forest,
Yeah.
leading us deeper into the mystery,
Yeah.
even if they ultimately lead to a dead end.
Right. It's that possibility that keeps us searching.
Right.
Keeps the story alive.
Absolutely. And perhaps that's the enduring legacy of Amelia Earhart.
Yeah.
She was a pioneer, a symbol of courage and ambition.
Yeah.
And her story It continues to inspire us even in its ambiguity.
It reminds us that there are still mysteries in this world,
Yeah.
puzzles that may never be fully solved.
Right. And maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the mystery itself is part of the allure.
Yeah.
It invites us to explore, to question, to keep searching for answers.
Yeah.
Even if those answers remain elusive.
And who knows, maybe someday new evidence will emerge.
Right.
Shedding light on what truly happened.
It could happen.
To this remarkable woman on that fateful flight.
Fingers crossed.
Until then, the mystery endures a testament to the spirit of exploration.
Yeah.
And the power of our imagination.
Absolutely.
Fill in the gaps where facts fall short.
So true.
So what do you think happened to Amelia Earhart? We've laid out the evidence, explored the possibilities.
A lot of possibilities.
But ultimately, the answer remains elusive.
It does.
The choice is yours. Which theory resonates with you? What secrets do you think the Pacific Ocean holds?
Yeah. What do you think?
Keep searching, keep questioning, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to finally crack the code of this enduring mystery.
I hope so.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.